Hey guys, got a special bonus episode of Almost an Agreement today. Um, AC from the airport is checking in. Couldn't make it last night for work reasons, and we'll go from there. So, what's up, AC? We've been missing you on the show.
I gotta tell you guys, this whole traveling during this pandemic thing has been a fucking pain in the ass. I mean, like, you gotta wear masks, like, in the fucking airplane 24/7.
Yep. Most of them.
Everything's fucking delayed. Like, the fucking, most of the bars are closed, so I'm in Illinois right now. This is the first fucking state that I've been in. Any connecting flights, anything where there's been a fucking bar in an airport that's been open. Let me tell you how terrible a fucking airport is without a goddamn bar. It's fucking awful. Awful. It's fucking awful.
I don't mean to giggle at your demise right now, but
I spent $30 fucking dollars on one hot dog and two beers, and I swear to God, I would have paid fucking $600 for it. I'm serious.
we got to do what me and Max did last time we flew together: was bring our own booze, and then get in trouble on the plane for it.
Well, shit, as it is, I'm like living out of a fucking suitcase right now, as it is anyway. And shit, if I just put wine or fucking beer in this thing, I'd have like one pair of underwear and like, a pair of scrubs. That's all I'd have.
That's enough.
I guess.
Just hand wash it in the hotel sink and hang it up while you're sleeping, and then put it back on when you get up. And
shit, it's like you were in the hotel with me, for God's sake.
Rinse and repeat. So did you read that that NFL article I sent?
So I heard about it actually when I was around. Let's just put it like that. A couple days ago. You mean about the NFL thing?
Yeah, about they're trying to figure out how to incentivize minority coaches.
I don't. So offline, we had a little text message conversation about it. I really think that we should do that for 3 years. Abruptly stop it.
And see if it gets
what
there.
happens over the next 3. Yeah, and like see what happens.
Right.
If there's a decrease, increase, and then just. I'm not saying that it's overtly racism. I'm not saying that, but there's something going on where the overwhelming majority of the players are African American, and the overwhelming majority of the head coaches are Caucasian. There's something going on there. I don't know what it is.
Well, like we talked about it, Max and I talked about it at length off air, and then we talked a little bit about it in episode 1. Like, for the most part, there are not a lot of the 32 NFL teams, and this was months ago, pre-corona when we were looking it up. Only like 6 had any NFL careers. Most of them had very short careers. Belichick, who's arguably the best coach in the game, played like 1 year at a junior college or at a Division II school or something like that. It seems to me, on light research at least, that a lot of these coaches are into coaching more than they're into playing. So the premise of the labor force, for lack of a better word, the players being all majority one way and the coaching be the other way, it seems to me more to be about when the decision to go into that side of the sport is than not.
I mean, maybe.
And I mean, that doesn't unsay that there's something to what we're talking about, but it seems like it's a little bit. Disingenuous is probably an overstatement. That's just the word that you use a lot, so I like to use it to sound smart. But it just seems a little disingenuous to assume that since there's that many that percentage of the players is that way, that the coaching staff should reflect that. I don't know.
Sure. I that's exactly what I would say.
So that's that's my thoughts on the front end of it. I think it's an interesting idea, but like the text that I sent saying, it's like, well, what happens if you're the 7th round or you're the 7th pick in the 3rd round, and what was supposed to be the 8th pick hires the black head coach, and now you get jumped, and 9 others above you get jumped for that picking reason because you're in the middle of a 6-year contract with your head coach. And so you're at a disadvantage because you're not hiring a coach just because you're like your coach or you've had a coach or whatever reason that is. I think it's a weird in the premise of fairness. It's kind of weird to punish a team that has an established coach and wants to keep them.
I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, like we had a conversation the last time I was on board about how you legalize marijuana, and there are people that got out of jail last week that have served their time, and life is equally unfair. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're looking for fairness across the board, we're not going to get it. So, like, we have to establish that
Right.
pretty early on. Otherwise, this entire conversation is just mute anyway.
I get what you're saying. Well, I think that's that there's something going on is very curious, and I would love for somebody to figure that out, because whether
and like I don't want to just say it's fucking racism. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that something is there. Something is clearly there. I don't know what it is, but something is clearly there.
Right, and I would interject my idea of when people get into coaching is part of it. And I mean, like Max and I in our off-air conversation, it's like, well, maybe a Belichick type person who realizes they're not the athlete comparatively, and that's when they take the mental shift into, I'm going to learn the game to coach the game. I'm going to play in high school and maybe a little bit in college, but I'm only in it to become a coach. Maybe that premise settles in earlier on a certain group because of just raw talent and base athleticism or something like that, which is kind of a racist thing to say too, I guess. But it seems that there's something to the athleticism difference, at least for that particular sport.
I mean, I don't know if I feel comfortable using that as a potential talking point. You know what I mean? Like, there are plenty of
as I'm saying it,
darker skinned individuals that are not athletic enough that could be in coaching, and for whatever reason they're just unable to get a seat at the table, and I don't know what that is. Maybe they just don't interview well, or maybe maybe all the white fucking old people are racist. I don't know.
Right.
But
well, I think a big part of it starts too is when you get, again, most coaches start coaching. I would say, again, this off-air conversation Max and I had, we were looking at it. You got coaches like Belichick again, who he was coaching right out of college, like he went straight to coaching, and so to get to have the experience level and the time spent in a coach to be like, hey, I've got the experience for this job, to work that whole to do that. I don't know. I guess my assumption is that if we're using the math of how many players are of color, I don't know that I didn't lose my train. It's just I'm realizing as I'm saying it that it doesn't make a lot of sense. Basically, I was getting at
it doesn't.
Right. If you start coaching straight out of college, you have all the experience behind it, and it's like you said, there's probably plenty of guys of color who have started coaching and tried to get into coaching right out of college, and their career doesn't take off like.
And to just further that point some more, like you bring up Belichick, and I agree with you. I think that comparison is not a good one, but I mean, Belichick was dog shit in Cleveland. I mean, he was absolute dog shit in Cleveland. So it's not like he just was like, oh my God, he's the second coming of.
Well,
George Seifert.
There's not much that isn't dog shit in Cleveland, so that I don't know if that's a fair analysis either. But you're right.
I mean, but if he's amazing, he would have had a better record there. Is what I'm saying. And so, like, at the end of the day, it's not like he just sort of popped out and was like, oh my God, he started coaching, and all of a sudden he's amazing.
Right.
So, like, I would just venture if that's like a Romeo Cornell who was in Cleveland, like Romeo Cornell hasn't had another head coaching gig. Like I don't know if he's offensive or defensive, but he's a coordinator now. I mean,
right.
Like,
he went
he's
to
a darker skinned guy, so.
Right, he went to Arizona or something, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he coach? I thought he was head coach at Arizona for a little while, and then he started being an offense coordinator somewhere.
I'm not sure.
I'd have to double check it.
Now I know he was. Yeah. But I mean, the larger point is, like, yes, we could use Belichick as an example, but I mean, it's not like Belichick was Belichick before he got to England. I mean, he had a 6th-round quarterback that was taken, and he had an owner that backed him, and he had a lot of things that worked in his favor. And so, yeah, we'll see. I think we could all agree that something is going on. We just don't know what it is.
Yeah, I agree with that. We'll see. We'll see how good Belichick is this year without Tom.
Yeah.
If we have football this year, we'll see. I think we will. I mean, we got 2 weekends in a row. We've had UFC events. Got a NASCAR race going on right now. It might be a weird version of football, but I think we're going to have football.
Yeah, they did the UFC in an empty arena like they were talking about doing in some sports.
Yeah, they did it 2 weeks in a row now. They did it a couple weeks ago, and I think it was in Jacksonville was the first one.
It'd be weird just not to hear a bunch of people going.
Yeah, yeah. Rogan was talking about it on his
simulate it in the background.
Rogan was talking about it on his podcast, where it's like, we could hear everything. We could hear the corners talking. We could hear like the fighters
You probably
talking
definitely
while
hear your
they're
coach.
fighting. Well, he was talking about how one of the fights they were calling, one of his co-commentators was like, whoever needs to check those leg kicks or whatever, and like just commentating it, but the fighters could hear the commentators, and the fighter reacted to what the commentator was saying he needs to do, and so like he actually changed his, whatever he was doing at that moment, hearing the commentators talking about what was going on. So yeah, it'll be weird. It'll be really weird to watch a football game with no crowd noise, but I don't know. I mean, it's a step to get in the economy and get the quote back to normal for some things at least. But I mean,
Well, we've seen a sharp reduction in the number of COVID cases in an ICU in the Jersey area.
yeah. I mean, Knoxville's looking good.
But
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that like, just because there's a sharp decrease doesn't mean that tomorrow that we're not going to have an increase again. And I think that we just have to all accept the fact that we were never looking to eradicate this. It was just more of a, like, how do we ration medical resources? How do we make this easier on the hospital systems?
Yeah, I get that.
Like, this is not ever about making sure that this thing can stop. That was never a part of the conversation.
Right, which makes the magically disappear statement even dumber than it already was. But, well, actually, I guess it makes it.
Oh God, don't get me started on that.
It makes it truer in the sense that was the only way it was going to go away, as if it magically did. But it's still a stupid thing to say. But that brings up what we were texting last night, because we had a weird couple, probably first 20 minutes of the show last night, because we were talking about other stuff and texting you, and then you were replying, and then we were reading your text back, so we were going back in time and conversation and stuff. And so what kind of jumped out to me about the vent conversation is, so what you were saying through the text, if I understood correctly, was that if you were bad enough with COVID that you go on a vent, you're probably not coming off it.
That is absolutely true.
Right. And then in other circumstances, so there's two reasons I was thinking about it, because one, you were talking in previous conversations about the whole rotoproning or whatever you called it, and about how stupid it was that the media, right, and the media making a big deal out of it. It's stupid. You're doing it all the time. And so I was thinking to myself, well, was this statement about, because the stat I heard was 90% that go on the vent don't come off, and I was thinking, well, is that normal or not? And you'd answered that, and that no, most cases, not most cases, but it's above 50%.
Most cases.
Right.
Yeah, most cases.
So it's above 50% for non-COVID cases. It's 10% survival rate with COVID. And so, like, my thought was, like, was this another one of those the media is making a big deal, but it's normal situations where, no, the media is making a big deal because it is a big deal this time.
It's a big deal. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I mean, it truly is. And like, honestly, God, like, I think I mentioned this in the group text. I think, like, if you really had to, I'm just guessing, I'm shooting from the hip here. I would really truly think that the number of patients that get off versus die are probably inverted. So in other words, like 90, I would venture a guess that 90% of COVID patients who are intubated don't make it. Conversely, non-COVID intubated patients, I would think closer to 90% make it.
I gotcha.
Depending on what kind of issue it is, of course.
Right.
I would think that particular number is probably inverted.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what I was saying last night. It's like, if 10% survival rate is good compared to other cases, then cool. But if it's terrible compared to other places, then that is an interesting, actually newsworthy thing to pass on to the public. Yeah. So what?
Did you guys read that article I sent you?
The 22-page medical journal entry.
Correct.
No.
Well, you should have.
Well, you
should have. I mean, you don't bitch about not having information, and then it's sent to you, and you're like, oh.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying you sent it, and I was half lit, and then I slept and worked out in the yard and did some other stuff today, and haven't dedicated the time to it. I'll be honest.
All I'm hearing are excuses. That's all I'm hearing.
Okay, it's a value. It's a value judgment on usage of my time.
I mean, I don't understand what's going on with a valuable thing for you. So It's okay. That's a different conversation for a different day.
You're correct. Can't win with you. So, what was the other thing we were talking about, Sam?
That's on you. It's not on me.
What was the other thing we were talking about, Sam, that we wanted to bring up when we had his ear?
I'm bored.
We got into some
10 minutes,
politics,
just
not
FYI.
too much.
Is Max there?
No, I told him I forgot to do so. I told him I'd text him when we get started if he wants to jump in, but he is doing things more important than reading that 22-page thing too.
I mean, it's really not even 22 pages. Like the abstract is a half page, so that breaks it down to 21 and a half, and like 6 pages of it is just fucking citations. So like really at the end of the day, we're all looking at like 15 and a half pages. Not that big a deal.
Okay, well, I'll do some homework for next time and we can talk about it then. But
All right.
crud, what was I going to say? We were talking about Obamagate. You sent that text about Obamagate, and I admit that I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on that. There's a problem to me when a duly elected president is what's the word I'm looking for? Is under. It's not even the under investigation part that's problematic, in that the outgoing president is withholding information on the assumption of a collusion scandal that hasn't technically started yet. And I don't know. That's my version of the Kool-Aid. I'm not sure I'm okay with an administration on its own deciding that the public who voted, or I guess the Electoral College who voted on behalf and through the system, is deciding that he doesn't feel like it's okay, that he doesn't like this new president that's coming in, and so he's not gonna pass over or exchange all the information and pleasantries and play the process like it's been done in the past. Whether it's
I don't think it's an accurate representation of that. I think a more accurate representation of what you're trying to describe is there was some chatter picked up on wires that there was some dialogue between Russian oligarchs and the Trump campaign. And if your duty is to the country first, you just give the basic sort of information you have to give to the incoming president. And some of the other stuff you don't necessarily need to tell him, because it's not any of his business that he's potentially getting investigated. And the problem lies in, we are talking about this only to muddy the water. Like, that's my whole point in all of this, is that we're at a point now where we can just throw anything out there, and it gets just the vacuum, the oxygen in the vacuum just gets sucked into whatever it is, the shit storm that we throw out there.
But is it not applicable is it not applicable because of who he is now currently campaigning against for president of the United States, to bring up the history of his opponent?
No, because I think in this particular situation, there was plenty that was discussed in this collusion thing, that the only reason why we're having a conversation about it is to distract ourselves from coronavirus and the economy. Like, that's the only reason why this is coming out now. Why didn't this come out a year ago? You know, like, why didn't this come out 6 months ago?
You're right. I don't disagree with that.
This is categorically intentional. Like, that's what my whole point is. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care who it is. Like, at the end of the day, this is another example of rhetoric. That's all this is. That's all this is.
Okay, I can get behind that.
So, like, for me, I don't really care whether or not Obamagate is a thing or not. What I care about is it is intentional that we're talking about it now.
Okay, so, okay. I get what you're saying. So, a side note, since we're on Biden-Trump conversation, I found the bet, and it was elected. It's not sworn in. It's not continues being president.
He's not going to get elected.
I'm just saying the bet concludes on election night.
That's cool. I mean, he's not going to get elected. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. I was just wanting to clarify.
We're recording. Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're recording now, but I'm telling you right now, he is not gonna get it. I mean, barring some sort of like mudding the fucking the water in some sort of shitstorm like it's trying to happen right now in fucking May. It's fucking not happening. I'm telling you right now, it's not gonna fucking happen.
I mean, it'll be. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I'm confident enough in it that hunting license is on the line again. I was confident that Brady would retire too, and now he's in Tampa. So my bets against you don't. My bets against you don't land well, and historically at least. But I had the opportunity. I wanted to clarify. So.
Okay.
But we talked about chicken, and we talked about the Farragut thing. We talked about a little bit, but we don't have to rehash that. It was kind of dumb. Farragut's being kind of dumb, and then it was my libertarianism saying, why does Farragut need permission from the state and federal government to stop a private company from doing things on Farragut property? That's the topic I got out of it, is why does your municipality need external permission to manage their own property? And it's not clear in the article whether or not these towers were going on Farragut property or private Farragut residence property, which makes a difference to me, at least.
Sounds like a libertarian thing.
Yeah, it was, but still weird. But then we talked chicken, but we don't have to rehash last night's stuff. We got anything new and exciting?
So you're asking me that?
Yeah, I don't know. You're the one. You haven't been around, so yeah, I want to catch up with you.
Hold on. Not really. I mean, I'm taking a piss in an airport. Hold on.
It's all right. We've got complaints about hearing people pee on the podcast before.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. What about Jim?
No word from Jim. Haven't heard. No, Jim checked in last week for a second.
Did he really?
Yeah, I had a coughing fit. It was gross, but that's all we really heard from him.
I should test into COVID.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I something to talk about, actually, just briefly, and I've got probably less than 2 minutes. I got to jump flight. So, like, we've thrown everything in Jersey. We've thrown everything at fucking patients. We've thrown hydroxychloroquine. We've thrown fucking plasma. We've fucking thrown everything at it, and it doesn't fucking work. And it doesn't fucking work because we don't have any fucking research back that says what will work. And anybody that says that they have any idea what will work is fucking shooting from the hip, and that's dangerous as fuck.
Is that not what you said you're just doing? Not that you know that it's going to work, but you're kind of shooting from the hip with what you've got in front of you.
Yeah, we're shooting from the hip. Like, we don't fucking know.
Okay,
I
just wasn't sure what
that's my point. Yeah, what I'm saying is that we've had individuals that have come out that have said, oh yeah, fucking hydroxychloroquine and
beach sand and salt water.
Else, or fucking Clorox, Lysol. I mean, it's fucking asinine. It's just asinine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's weird, like, getting stuck in, like, Whole Foods. I have to do a whole body scan. They've got, like, a thermal camera that you got to stand in front of to get inside. And it's like, this doesn't even, I don't know. If I have a fever right now that doesn't prove anything other than I'm going to have to go get a test to prove to my boss that I'm still allowed to work today.
The interesting thing is, maybe pre-fever, you may be able to get the virus to other folks. So just because you have a fever doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only time in which you can give it to other folks. So
right, that's part of why it's weird, because I get, like, there's a couple different places where they'll do like one of those laser ones that they put up to your, like, forehead or whatever, or like the Whole Foods one where it's got the. Nobody's done a rectal yet. I keep asking them if they want to, but nobody says yes. But
well, that's only because you're into it.
But like, yeah, like, it doesn't. From my understanding, which we all agree is limited, is that I could be completely asymptomatic, including not running a fever. So running a fever doesn't tell me or the place that I'm going into anything other than I have a fever or not right now. It doesn't do
Correct.
so. It seems a lot like the security theater, like you're in the middle of right now, going through an airport.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
What it really is the lawyers are guarding, are with the fucking PlayStation controller and they're guarding what the fuck happens. That's
Right.
what it is.
Yeah, and we talked about that with Home Depot last night after the show. We were talking about it off air, and that the inference is that Home Depot's banking mad money right now and cutting staff at the same time, so they're banking even more money. And Max was arguing that it was a malicious thing. I was more arguing that it was a legal thing, that the lawyers are like, this is what we need to do. We need to limit our exposure to this. We need to limit our staff's exposure to this and try to keep it as low key as possible for as long as possible. And then maybe it continued for more monetary incentives. But at least on the front end, I think it was a lawyer's thing. The lawyers were like, hey, this is the information we got right now. As few interactions as possible, as much distance as possible. And that's what we're going to do.
100% lawyers.
I think it's one thing they're trying to add into something like the CARES Act they've been passing is trying to prevent people being able to sue employers or sue businesses that they've gone into that could possibly they've contracted it from.
I mean, I take
like, well,
yeah,
I went
that's
to Walmart 3 times. I got sick. I'm suing Walmart because they didn't clean their store well enough.
right. And
That's exactly what it is.
I kind of agree with that as far as if that's the compromise that the Republicans are trying to put up for this next one. The Democrats are trying to spend $3 trillion or whatever. The Republicans are just saying are not okay with it because the spending and blah 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 blah. But they want to add liability protection for businesses, which I mean, I don't know if that's a weird one, I guess, because like how do you prove as a customer? It's like, well, it's the only place I went into this week and now I'm sick. I mean, yeah, maybe that doesn't prove it, but I don't know how that would litigate actually in court. The employee side, I'm a little more concerned with in that it's like, well, you have to come to work or you're fired. And that person comes to work asymptomatic, and then that's a patient zero for a hotspot that brews up. And whether or not there's liability to the company there, I get that. That makes sense to me that the company could have some liability in balancing that situation, but I don't know what the solution to that is because it's a weird spot.
I love you guys. I gotta go.
All right, man. Have a safe trip. Holler at me when you get home.
Thanks, man.
All right.
We'll do.
Okay.
All right. All right, later, buddy. So that is our mini bonus episode with AC waiting for his plane. Hopefully he gets back safe. Sam, you got anything you want to add before we shut it down?
Nah.
Well, I'm glad you were here. Your support is
Yeah, I'm
always,
glad I got to
always
listen
beautiful. Thanks, everybody, for checking in. This is a kind of bonus mini episode of Almost in Agreement, May 17th, 2020. Have a good day. Thanks, bye.